I'm just covering the paid staff because I could say thank you to so many other people in this room. So just to make sure that my next contract is secure, I do want to say thank you to the executive board and the board. So I'm taking off the hat that you know that I wear so uncomfortably. And I'm here representing my brothers to speak about my parents. I do not want to speak to you or share with you today anything about their achievements, because that's in the bulletin or that's in the journal. And I wanted to give you a little slice or a picture of who my parents are through the eyes of their children. So to begin with, it isn't atypical for my parents to say, we're coming and giving me the dates. And I say, those dates don't work for me. And they say, we're not coming to see you. You're coming to see the grandchildren. My parents' names were Larry and Lois. They did not grow up with a strong Jewish classroom education, by no means. Maybe Hebrew school was a part of my dad's childhood. I've never even spoken to my mother. I don't even know if you went to Hebrew school in any way, Mom. Bissell. But they gave their 4 sons the names Joshua, Adam, Aaron, and Isaac. Profound. And it's even more important in this day and age where we Jews have made it in the world and we're so well accepted that our names identify us as Jew. And there was no escape and there was only celebration in our home for being Jew. And it started with the names you gave us. And I can't tell you how blessed I feel. We all of your children feel that you gave us the names that you did. Each characters of the Tanakh, of the Bible, that represent something important to our people. And each names that we carry as a badge of honor. I don't know how you found the names that you did, but it was a gift, and thank you. Rabbi Yitzhak Greenberg was probably the most profound religious influence on my upbringing. Nothing to do with me, everything to do with a weekend my parents got to spend with him. And because of that weekend, my parents decided to send us to Jewish day school. Now, we didn't keep a kosher home. We didn't go to shul. We were not a family that was typical of the one that would choose to send their children to day school. 2 years after going to day school, our home became kosher. Friday night dinner became a part of our weekly experience. My mom want to say that she wanted her children to know what Judaism is. What are our values? What are our laws? What are our traditions? And then she'll tell you, I didn't really want for any of them to actually live it, but to know it, that was important. My dad, who provided the stability for all of us to explore our dreams, will tell you that he used to introduce me, this is my son Adam the Rabbi, where did I go wrong? He had dreams of his children surrounding him in his company, and that being his legacy. But your legacy is very different, Dad and Mom. You have 4 children, and if anybody watches their lives, it's obvious they all live a life of value and meaning and ideology. It does not take long to see that your children, their lives express their values. And that comes from someplace. Whether or not we all agree with those values or not, we're not afraid to express them. And we find it essential to live according to our truth. My father became a Zionist in 1967. He was always a Jew, a proud Jew. He became a Zionist after the 6-Day War. And from that moment, he fought to raise funds, to create relationships, to support the state in any way he could. And that spilled over into the rest of us. My dad tells a story. Newt Gingrich, before he was a presidential candidate, he was a congressman, and he represented our district. My father went to a breakfast one morning to hear Newt Gingrich speak, and he happened to find himself sitting down next to Newt. My dad said, "Newt, you're going to get my vote because you are strong on my three most important areas: Israel, Israel, and Israel." This was the home that cultivated me and my brothers. At our wedding, when Lynn and I made it official, my mom stood up and said, "If Adam and Lynn are not going to be living down the street from me in Atlanta, there's no place else I want them to live in Jerusalem." This was at the height of the Second Intifada. I just wanted to give you a window into who my parents are. And don't get me wrong, when the rabbi in Atlanta retired, I don't know when it was last week, 15, 20 years ago, there's a story told my father called him and said, "Rabbi, could you please create some of your Divrei Torah on tape for me?" And the rabbi was astounded, so complimented. "Larry, I only saw you a couple times a year. High holidays." Only later did my mom explain that my father doesn't sleep any better than when the rabbi speaks. So I wanted some tapes to help him fall asleep at night. My mother is very active on the national Jewish scene. In Atlanta and in North America, I am not known as Rabbi Adam Frank. I am not known as Rabbi Rosh Israel. I am known on the national scene as the child of Lois Frank. My mother has set the bar very high for all of the Jews in the world, with her passion, and her interaction, and her abilities of persuasion to bring community together. In Atlanta, I'm not known as Rabbi Adam Frank. I'm not known as Adam Frank, former athlete. I'm known as the son of Larry and Lois Frank. And it is a badge of honor, because my parents made an indelible impression on the creation of Atlanta jewelry, on the sustenance of Atlanta jewelry. My mom has been my model for what does it mean to raise a voice in the face of dissent. To be the lone voice willing to ask the questions or raise the points that need to be said in uncomfortable moments. My father is the model for what does it mean to use your resources to take care of others who are less fortunate. My father grew up in the shadow of the Depression and has lived a very small C conservative life. But there's nobody I know who's been more generous with giving of his resources to others in their times of need. So much so that my dad today tells me, "Adam, slow down, don't give so much. Save for the future." And I say, "I'm the fruit of your tree, Mom and Dad. You can't stop a moving train." Something that my mother has expressed to me in the past. She says she always wanted me to be open-minded enough, progressive enough, and have the kind of heart and neshama that would allow me to fall in love with a non-Jew, a person of color, somebody outside of my own ethnicity. She also hoped that I would find somebody within the Jewish people to share my life with. So at the same time as she impressed upon me the need and importance of having a Jewish partner, she also wanted me to know that seeing beyond a person's color, beyond a person's persuasion, is critical to what does it mean to be a loving person in the world. Now, I explain to people how blessed I feel to be a member of Rosh Israel, and especially to hold the position that I do. I also explain to people that not everybody likes the model of a rabbi that I provide. But in the next moment I say, I know very few people who are critical of the person that I am. The person that I am is a result of the parents who brought me into this world. And my parents are radically different in many ways. Somehow, in some way, they created the perfect storm to raise 4 children who care about others, who care about Israel, who are beautiful parents themselves, who see beyond the exterior of the other, who live a life of ideology. I'm going to bring my wife into this for a moment, and I hope she won't be too upset. Lynn, I look around my chevra of friends, and I think I'm doing a pretty good job as a parent and as a spouse. And Lynn says to me, Adam, you do. She says, but it's interesting because when moms do what they're called on to do, nobody's there to praise us. Everybody's there to expect it. But when the father changes the diaper, or gets up in the middle of the night, or leaves work early to be with the child, that person is praised as if it's some magnanimous act. And she's right. And I say, you're right. We need to get to the stage where both parents are praised equally for their dedication. But don't judge me based on what you think is the ideal. Judge me based on my model, who was my father. And I look much better all of a sudden. Now I remember, and I'm sorry I'm going on like this, but you've given me a gift. You've given me a gift of a platform to speak about my parents. And this is my gift to them. So please excuse the usurping of time. But I remember becoming more feminist in my way, coming home from Israel for a year, and being very critical of my mom and my dad. Dad, why don't you do this? Mom, how do you let him do that? My mom brought me aside and said, Adam, I'm very happy for you. I'm happy for the women who are going to be part of your life, your daughters, your wife. Your father and I have created a relationship that works for us. And there's no need to be critical or disturb that model because it allows us to have the life we want. And that was a critical lesson for me, to realize that even though I see something as truth, that truth doesn't always apply to every other person in the world. And I hope that the lesson I learned from that, I take into my relationships with others, and in the passion that I bring to everything I do. And that is just one sample of the things that my parents weren't even aware that I remember, but have impacted me profoundly. I'm going to end just by saying that if you read the letter that my parents wrote to the journal, my parents sent it to me first and said, is this okay? Are you okay with this? I had to edit some things, but I left in a little bit. And I read it to Arlene, and I said, Arlene, after you read this letter, you'll understand why I'm somebody who's filled with such self-confidence, why I'm somebody who feels that I'm worthy. And that's the gift my parents have given me. And hopefully that I'm a part of the gift that they're going to leave the world. Everything that I do, I recognize is because of my good fortune in the family that I was raised in. And we're not without fault, any of us. And I could stand up here for a long, long time and point those out. But today is about celebrating the gifts that my parents have given to the Jewish people and to Mercy Israel. And I want to thank you both. And I don't know if I'll have the opportunity again in public to say these things to you. But I speak on behalf of Joshua and Aaron and Isaac and your 9 grandchildren and your 3 daughters-in-law. You have 9 grandchildren, is that right? 8? Oh, I maybe I said something I wasn't supposed to. Lynn, Mazel Tov. Well, we got some work to do, sweetheart. Thank you, Mercy Israel, for giving my family the opportunity to recognize 2 very special people in our lives.